for Roy Halladay.
So let's switch
dive into the best team in Philadelphia.
Second Flyers?
I knew you were going to say something. That's why I said it.
Let's dive into arguably the best team in the city right now, the Philadelphia 76ers. Training camp continues to be underway. Danny Green, finally officially a Philadelphia 76er. Al Horford, finally officially no longer.
I was getting so nervous that trade was going to fall apart somehow.
Danny Green practices today for the first time with the team. Doc Rivers had great words to say about his play today. I believe, if I'm correct, he said he shot the heck out of the ball today. So let's start with the biggest rumor. Also, another video check out, a part of the Painted Lines. They did a great breakdown of the James Harden rumors last night, so go check that video out on the Danny Green. I'm reading this comment on the Painted Lines YouTube channel, and don't forget to press that subscribe button as well. Again, I'll throw this to you first. So once you think the roster's set, once you think this is what we're working with for the 2020-2021 season, rumors get thrown out. James Harden was not reporting to camp in Houston.
He was in the
Did not know when he was going to report, and he brought up the 76ers again as a trade request. So, again, what's your feeling now? Because I remember before when it was linked to us and the Nets, we felt as though there wasn't much to it, didn't hold much weight. Now, how much weight does it hold? And we'll get into what packages we would throw and everything like that. But just what are your overall thoughts on the rumor resurfacing?
Yeah, I mean, it's really cool that he just mentioned the Sixers in particular, as opposed to weight to it. I mean, it doesn't hit the surface from Woj if there's no weight to it at all. So, I mean, there had to be some sort of communication, I'd assume. I'm not obviously in the scene, but I'd assume there'd be some communication between the two, even if it was hey, James Harden wants to play for you, give us Ben, and it was no, and hung up the phone. There had to be some sort of communication involved between the two about it. And again, he brought us up. So at first you heard a lot of Brooklyn, but he said the Sixers. So there's got to be a little bit of weight to it.
So you're saying where there's fire, there's smoke. Again, I just said that ass backwards. Where there's smoke, there's fire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that quote.
Snap.
Yeah, it's awesome to hear. Especially when you hear from a guy that's arguably a top 5 player in the league like James Harden. That's all you – even if you don't have a guy like that on your team and you're a team like the Sixers who are just probably 1 or 2 pieces from actually being a contender, like a definitive contender, hearing that from a top 5 guy is amazing because even though you may not get him, it just shows you that type of talent wants to play with your talent that you have locked up for at least the next 3 years. And you could, as a fan of the city and as a fan of the team, you couldn't be more ecstatic about that. Like, oh, this top 5 guy would come play with us. The other team he mentioned has Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, and he wants to play with our homegrown stars. It kind of gives you a little bit of jitters. It's exciting news. And like you said, yeah, if Woj tweets it, there's weight to it. If it could, like Ginn said, it could have been just, we'll trade you James Harden for Ben Simmons. No. Okay. At least there's communication. Do I personally think the deal gets done? No. Do I think we'll be the sender like how Brooklyn was for the next 2 weeks? Yes. But do I think a deal gets done at this rate? No. Unless if Daryl Morey and James Harden, this is shout out again for this little theory. James Harden and Daryl Morey are on the phone behind closed doors, and Daryl Morey's saying, don't report to camp and just keep partying so we can get leverage. That'd be awesome because James Harden sure has been partying. He's been in the club getting lit. It seems like he has no interest with playing with the Rockets.
George.
I think it's awesome that the best offensive player in basketball has interest in playing for Philadelphia. What was that? What was that?
Kevin Durant.
All right. You're right. But yeah, where there's smoke, there's fire. If we're just saying something, then there's got to be something to it. They're definitely talking. There's definitely communication, but it's still going to take a lot to get this deal done. And will it get done? Probably not.
Stay tuned.
It's going to be a hell of a lot of rumors coming up these next few weeks. It's going to be fun to follow along with, but I doubt anything happens. If you're not giving Ben or Joel to the Rockets, do they really want to do that? Probably not. Are we giving up Ben or Joel Are we giving up Ben or Joel? No, we're not going to.
It's so good.
But yeah, there it is.
We're getting there.
No, I did not.
But yeah, I don't see anything happening. I think it's really cool that he wants to come to Philly, but I don't see a package that could possibly be enticing enough to Houston to ship him off this season. So, I mean, he's still under contract, so we'll see what happens. But it's cool. It's cool to follow along with.
Another thing, I sorry, before Dylan, you.
Oh dear God!
What?
You don't like what? Pull it up. Say something. You don't like Ben Simmons?
No, yeah. So, Houston
The next
has,
comment is something we should discuss as well.
Houston has literally zero leverage in this situation in any way. They're in a really bad spot. You just traded Russell Westbrook for, in my opinion, a worse player in John Wall, who hasn't played in 2 seasons.
Yep.
You signed Christian Wood for a lot of money, who is a very good player, don't get me wrong, but I think got paid a little bit too much. And then you signed DeMarcus Cousins. So clearly you were in a spot where you're like, okay, we can still fork some wins out somehow. And now your best player, who's a top 5 player in the NBA, doesn't want to play for your team. Houston, in my opinion, if they hear, first of all, we'll talk about packages later, so I'm not even going to talk about it. Go ahead.
Bring up that last comment, Dylan, if you can.
Yeah, but if there's a player-driven league, it's the NBA. Like, we see that they force the hands. They kind of play where they want nowadays. So, like Ginn said, if he wants out of Houston, he's not playing a game for Houston. But Big Shane Gillis here says, we're in a good spot. We have the upper hand in any discussion. And Daryl Morey isn't interested in making deals just to make deals, especially after saying he plans to keep Joe and Ben this year.
To comment on that, yes, do I agree that Daryl Morey would like to see these two play as the 1 and 2 for this whole year? Yes, I absolutely do think that, especially with a new roster. But I don't care what anyone says about fit or anything else. This is a guy, Daryl Morey, who's been with James Harden his whole career in Houston. He knows the caliber of a player he is. If there's a way to bring in James Harden to make a big 3 in Philadelphia, you do it, man. This is a talent-driven league, and when you put superstars together, you get results. It's proven. Golden State, Miami, like the list goes on and on and on. So regardless if it's, oh, okay, let's see what we got, and we want to see what we got here, why wouldn't you add a top 5 player?
All right, let's talk packages. Again, what would a package look like for you, assuming that Morey and Doc are holding true, that Ben and Joel are not going anywhere, especially the recent comments, like Joel's not going anywhere. We know that. So the piece before that was discussed was Ben Simmons. Would you do it? Would you not? Is there a thought? Is there not? Now, especially with the comments that Doc has made about Ben in camp so far, and the comments Morey has made about giving them some time and seeing what they can do with Doc and spacing and shooting around the two, I don't see any way Ben is a part of a trade for James Harden. So what would a package for James look like for you? We know a ton of picks would be involved, but player-wise, what would have to be given up?
Shout out Brian Jacobs here, because I think he had it written out perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
Tobias Harris has to be involved. No way around it. Matisse Thybulle, he has Tyrese Maxey. I'm going to say Shake Milton. 2021 first-round pick, 2022 pick swap, 2023 first-round pick, 2024 pick swap. So you're giving up 2 first-round picks, 2 swappable, and you're giving up 3 players. That's leaving you with your big 3 that you're saying you want. Like 100%. Obviously, you give up a lot of assets, but I mean, we'll talk about if we all would do that package or not. But
what's wrong with that?
This is the comments tonight. All right. I completely agree with Gint. In this sense, I think Brian got it absolutely on the head. Well, where you say Shake, I say Tyrese, because I think you would want a younger player like Tyrese over Shake. Even though it's not much of a difference, I still think Tyrese holds a little more value since he's a rookie.
Definitely.
And I think they're going to want the most value. But it's going to come down to picks if Ben's not involved. So 4 pick with swaps and first round picks is definitely the way it goes. And it's definitely in the near future that you want it. Because honestly, if you fire sale James Harden like this, then you're probably fire sailing the whole team. Like, you're probably going to keep a guy like Christian Woods around. You'll probably get one season out of John Wall to prove that he's healthy, and then you're going to ship him off immediately. Try to do the same thing with DeMarcus Cousins at the trade deadline. So that's what my whole thing would be. But that would also need to include Houston understanding its complete and utter defeat and that they need to rebuild immediately. So that's where I see the deal not happening. And also, again, if Ben Simmons is the only way the deal gets done, it's not happening. I agree with Shake contract compared to Maxey, but Shake has more upside proven than Maxey right now. I agree with that. Just commenting on Chris's comment. But Maxey has probably more potential at the NBA level just because he's such a new and young prospect. And if you're rebuilding a team, you want to be able to shape a guy the way you want to do it.
So, yeah, I agree with that with some sort of mix there. I agree that it's Tobias, especially contractual for the contract. Matisse would be a part of it, and then either Shake or Maxey, and then 4 to 5 picks, in my opinion, would be involved going to Houston. But I said I want to make this interactive, so let's get interactive, guys, for the last few minutes. We have Vasilios. I hope I pronounced your name wrong. Tell me if I'm wrong. Now I like our bench this year. Are you saying you wouldn't trade those pieces to get James Harden? Because
for a top 5 player that puts up 50 to 60 points.
Scoring leader the last 2 years.
It would be an
Nadire's comment too. Bring that up.
I want to get to the first one. Nadir, thanks you for watching, man. We're just messing around with you. I like interacting with you. Thanks for watching again. But even though I do not like Simmons, I'm not for the trade. So I get not wanting to get Ben up for James Harden. But Nadir, can you explain to me why you don't like Ben Simmons?
The other comment is the one I was really focused on.
And then he says Harden would frustrate Joel, it wouldn't work.
Do you know these guys personally?
No,
Are you hanging out with James Harden and Joel Embiid? Do you know how they get along? Like, players adapt. You're forgetting James Harden played with Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook to start his career off. I know that was a long time ago, but he's played with ball-dominant players before. Like, guys change their game to win championships.
Then we have another comment here from Chris. Is it important to you guys at all to have homegrown guys because they're more fun to watch?
No, not at all. If anything, I think I'm actually like the total opposite, because all these homegrown, quote unquote, process guys that I despised in every single way. Ben and Joel aren't process guys. They're good basketball players that we have. Like the Rocos, TJ McConnell's, Dario, like thank God they're all gone.
I do agree with the point though that homegrown guys are more fun to watch because you get to see them become the players they are. Like the whole Joel Embiid process was awesome. Seeing him sit out 2 years. I was at his first game. That's probably the most memorable Sixers game I was ever at. Like, if we're being honest, when he hit that jumper at the free throw line for his first bucket after 2 years of him sitting out on injuries, the stadium, I don't think I've ever heard the stadium go so ballistic for a season opener. It was absolutely insane. So I do agree that homegrown guys are more fun to watch. But on the other hand, when you're a Miami Heat team and you pull in LeBron James and Chris Bosh and make a big three, that's when it gets to the point where it's like, you know what? Fuck our homegrown guys. I want a championship. So it goes both ways.
No, having homegrown talent's awesome, especially watching him grow. But like, you just want to win. Fuck homegrown talent. And Embiid and Simmons, they're just a different story about home. Like they're homegrown talent that you really, really hit on. Like they're not. I just don't see the Simmons at all.
What is homegrown to you guys in the NBA? Like that's not homegrown.
Well, no, but you
drafting Ben Simmons, that's not homegrown.
I mean, what else?
It is. It's homegrown. You drafted him and you got to develop him into the player he is right now at the NBA level. That's homegrown.
Really
talking about a guy from Philadelphia that grew up Philadelphia. He was born at Chop and he grew up his whole way in Philadelphia. I'm not talking about like a legacy story of Philadelphia like he's Rocky Balboa or something. Like I'm talking about a guy that came to the city as a draftee and then made it to an NBA championship. That is fun. Everyone.
I do agree with you though. Like homegrown in the NBA is definitely a lot different than
because when I think of homegrown, I would think more towards of baseball.
Yeah,
baseball.
or NHL. Yeah, I got.
He comes through. That's homegrown. Like,
but that's because you're focusing more on like how they have to come up through the minors. There's a longer process and there's more anticipation. But like when it was 2016 and we got the first overall pick, no one was more excited about Ben Simmons coming here and watching him become the player. In 2014, when we drafted Joel Embiid, and after 2 years, he finally hit that NBA court, and he actually was good, and he actually was a dominant player on the court. Everyone was ecstatic. Ben is arrogant and acting like he is the savior himself. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, well,
All right.
There's a stigma about Ben Simmons. I don't think
something to touch on.
Not true. It's not true.
I don't think Ben Simmons is arrogant. He just doesn't have a lot of personality.
Yeah, it's again.
So people just think he's arrogant. Like the dude just started a whole foundation.
I've never heard anyone say that.
I would love to know the inside scoop he has on him being arrogant, but just keep it moving.
That and James Harden and Joel Embiid not liking each other too.
And Farrakhan Korkmaz is a good NBA player, but whatever. What do I know?
I'll throw Farrakhan in there.
But all right, guys. So let's move forward. Let's move forward towards some of the comments made by Doc and Danny Green today. Doc has alluded to the energy in the gym in recent days of practices. What?
We didn't even get into if we would do the deal.
Oh yeah.
Oh, our packages.
I'll start.
I got so past it because we got into the comments.
Let George start because you cut him off. Didn't even ask his trade package.
Listen, we all got the same trade package.
Yeah.
It's true. And
Ryan's package. Ryan's package makes more sense.
If it's Toby, if it's Thibault, if it's either Shake or Maxey, and a bundle of picks or pick swaps, I think I speak for all of us saying we would do that 10 out of 7 days of the week.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like not even close. Like that's
you don't turn down a big three like that.
You're bringing could you imagine James Harden, Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid?
Listen, and the other thing is Doc Rivers has talked so much about pick and roll. You can run pick and roll with all three of those guys and just do so much on a basketball court. James Harden pick and roll with Joel Embiid. James Harden, Ben Simmons pick and roll. Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid pick and roll. You would have so many options on whatever you wanted to do. It would be absolutely
not to mention
just Ben Simmons and James Harden pick and roll would be unstoppable. Because honestly, I think if you put Ben in a roller spot, there's a whole different aspect to his game that has not been unlocked because Brett Brown didn't know what he was doing.
Yeah, and I know we love Matisse, and I know we want to see what kind of NBA player Tyrese Maxey turns into because we have a lot of confidence in what that can be. So if there's no trade, obviously, I still really like the Sixers team going forward and how it's constructed right now. But if that is the package, you still keep the spacing and the shooting you brought in the other trades this offseason around Joel and Ben, on top of adding a top 5 and probably number 2 in the NBA offensively in James Harden for a big 3.
Yeah.
That would be
electric.
I just don't see how Houston gives Philadelphia and Daryl Morey, James Harden. Daryl Morey already basically ripped the heart out of Houston this offseason. It's like Tillman something. I don't know who he is, but he's the guy that is, I'm assuming, handling basketball operations right now. But there's no way he just gets beat. I don't think they want that atrocious Tobias contract to begin with. I don't think a lot of NBA teams want that contract. But I also think that Doc Rivers is more – okay. I think Doc is so okay with seeing if Tobias can become this third star that they want. Because everyone's perceiving this, and Austin Krell said it last night. He said everyone's perceiving they want a big three in the near future. Like you want it. Because that's what all of you've heard about. You've heard about Zach LaVine. You've heard about James Harden.
That's honestly the guy I want, too.
I think they would love to see if Tobias can just pan out under Doc, where he's been successful as this third guy that they want. So I don't think – obviously Philadelphia would love James Harden.
That right there is the comment.
Yeah, if Tobias does pan out to be the dude, like, amazing. We don't have to give up anything great. But if we're getting that offer and we're all taking that. Nobody's saying no to that.
Yeah.
It's just not a smart move for you. Even if James Harden dips in 2 years, you have a 2-year window to run a big 3 with a great two-way defender.
You didn't trade Bernard Joel. That was the thing. The only thing holding, I think, anyone back in that trade scenario before was giving up Ben Simmons.
No doubt.
Yeah, obviously.
Remember a few weeks ago we were like, dude, but like if Daryl Morey somehow pulls this off without giving up Ben or Joel, like, well, if that's the case, look, and again, I know Woj tweeted it, so there's probably some weight to it. I don't know how much. Like Gint said, it could have been one simple phone call. They were told no, and that was just the message. But we will see in the coming.
I also think there's a lot more contenders that have probably a better package than we do, but like excluding Ben. Like I think Ben would be the best package if somehow Houston get that you could possibly get. But I think Brooklyn would have a better package than we would.
Brooklyn is already kind of strapped with cash now. I mean, how much money did they just give Joe Harris?
Yeah, a lot.
75 million.
Joe Harris would be
so
involved.
like including
involved in the deal.
Yeah, so if you had to go out and get James Harden, now Joe Harris is immediately in the deal just because of cap reasons.
Yeah,
and that alone is just going to make the package less valuable compared to
also,
like
I think Karis LeVert is an unreal asset.
So
Brooklyn's going to be really good. So I don't know about how
Spencer Dinwiddie's still there
they
too.
might get Dinwiddie in the deal too. So I think there's other packages for Houston to give. That's why I don't think we see a trade coming, and the Tobias thing that I stated.
Yeah, like if you're not putting Ben Simmons in the deal, you're probably not the best package. If you're putting Simmons in the deal, it's a no-brainer that the Sixers have the best package out there, but I don't think any of us are doing that, right?
No,
I'm
cool on that.
Like I said,
At that point, it just becomes age and contract-wise. Like 24-year-old just starting his 5-year deal. I think he's making most 30 mil or 34 mil a year. He's making less than Tobias is, and Tobias is making 34 mil this year. And then you got James Harden, 2 years left, 40 million a year at 31 years old. It just comes down to like just numbers at that point. Like you don't know what Ben's gonna be. You kind of know what James Harden is gonna be, and if he does have a major injury in like one of these 2 years, you're basically equivocally trading for a 1-year deal.
That's another thing. If we make a deal, I want an extension on the spot.
No doubt.
I'm not having another. If I'm the Sixers, and again, we have all the leverage in this deal. Houston has zero leverage with any NBA team right now. I want a extension on the spot. We're not having Jimmy Butler Part 2 come.
And speaking of Zach LaVine, Zach LaVine,
would you trade Ben Simmons to get Zach LaVine?
Don't ask stupid questions. No, I'm sorry.
I had to ask him.
Zach LaVine to the Knicks.
Not leaving Chicago. I don't know where. I don't think
unless the only way Zach LaVine leaves Chicago this year is if before the trade deadline, the Chicago is still that bad that they aren't even considerations for like an 8th seed or even in a playoff type of push, and he demands it.
I don't think they'll give it to him, dude. They're building. The only reason they would give him up is he's like a tad bit older than everyone they have. They have Kobe White, Wendell Carter. They just drafted.
But that's going back to the athletes have. You could give them young players that fit that age group.
Yeah, and I just don't think any NBA team has enough talent that young to swing Zach LaVine.
You would have to give up a player like similar payroll, and then the only other guy that really even blips on the radar or was blipping on the radar for a trade package is basically no one even wants him now that Al Horford's gone, and that's Buddy Hield. Because the only reason we wanted Buddy Hield was to make cap work and get Al Horford the fuck out.
Buddy Hield's contract sucks.
Yeah.
All right, boys. I got to hop off early. Nadir, I love you.
Later, Snap.
All right, guys. So let's just, before we wrap up here, if you guys have anything else you want to touch on, keep commenting. We'll try to get to as many comments as we can. But the overall vibe at Sixers camp, like I was getting to before Gint really interrupted me, after I really interrupted George, is just kind of that they like the roster. I mean, I know that's the easy thing to say, and that's what he's going to say. Like, I like the guys we have. I like our roster now. But it's just the feel of the camp. Doc has made a lot of comments to the media. Then Danny Green comes in today and says that he loves the energy in camp right now on his first day. So that's their vibe. Again, what is your vibe for the 76ers this season?
I think it's a lot of like guys with chips on their shoulders in a sense. I think Joel underperformed last year. I think Ben thinks he has a lot of prove left. And you just go down the roster. Danny Green didn't have the best year last year. Tyrese Maxey went 15 draft picks probably too late than he thought he physically could have. Dwight Howard seems to have this persona that I think a lot of people think he was carried to a championship. I just think you have a roster full of guys that think they underperformed in their previous season. I mean, and as a whole, the Sixers drastically underperformed. So there's so much I think these guys are invested in figuring this out. And I think Daryl Morey really helped that by making this roster like just make sense. Because Daryl Morey came in, saw a roster that had 2 bad contracts, got rid of one, and got floor spacing that we didn't think we could get. Yeah. So I think, like I said, a lot of guys with a lot to prove. I shouldn't say a lot to prove because they're NBA players. Realistically, they don't really have anything to prove. But in terms of the NBA, I think these guys are all in on trying to figure this out.
So do you guys think, and George, you go next, but do you guys think that as currently constructed, they're in title contention?
I'll let George go first.
Should I say at least coming out of the East?
Yeah, I think right now they're at least the top 4 team in the East constructed right now. They have a lot better depth than last year. Our starting 5 is going to be better than last year. It seems like Joel is working his ass off to stay in shape in the offseason. You see all the videos of him. He's doing everything. He's playing tennis. He's running. He's on the court. We have a coach, a competent head coach, and not even just that, we have a competent coaching staff. Like, everything's so much better. We have a better front office. It seems like everything's on the up and up. I like our roster now. I like our roster a lot. I think we're a top 4 team in the East. Title contention, I guess you could say that, right? If a top 4 team in the East, we have a chance to get out of the Eastern Conference. Definitely. So I would call us title contenders, no doubt.
Yeah, I'm there too, dude. And and that's without the big 3, and that's with Ben and Joel. You obviously having to take that step, right? Like, if it's the Ben and Joel of last year and the year before, no, they're not going to be title contenders. But that's with them taking a step. And George, you kind of went where I was going. So Daryl Morey has finally put together this roster that gives you what we've been talking about, spacing and 3-point shooting, and B, a competent rim protector and defender when Joel Embiid is off the floor.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know what's the season this year? 72. How many games?
72 games.
72 games. What's the name? Joel is not going to play all 72 games, so that's big in itself. But the coaching staff, right? You hear Sam. Is it Sam? I believe it's Sam Cassell is working with Ben on his mid-range game and corner 3 game, right? You're hearing Ben's comments that him and Joel are running pick and rolls together, and they weren't allowed to do that with Brett Brown as the head coach, and they're really excited to do that. Well, like, that is what I want to see, because I think they actually do have the pieces in place. I'm not saying they're better than the Lakers, the Clippers, but as far as coming out of the East, I've said it all along, even last year. I'll take Ben and Joel versus a lot. Like, I know Giannis is a freak of nature, right? But the Bucks never felt that much better to me than the Sixers. And with the way the roster is constructed now, and I guess I would have to go as far to say Matisse is going to have to take a step. Dwight Howard's going to have to, play valuable minutes off the bench. I think they're there. I'm not saying they're going to win the championship this year. I think they can come out of the East this year. Minimum Eastern Conference Finals.
Pull that Ty comment up.
He said, Ty Book said, never thought I'd say this, but I like the addition of Dwight Howard. If not for any other reason, he's a good example for JoJo how to stay in shape.
Because, that's 100% true. I feel like I'm not going to say –
I'll go one more. Shane Gillis, Dwight competing with Joel is going to do wonders to force Joel to focus up and value his job more. Yeah, I mean, I won't go as far to say that Joel needs to focus to keep his job, but on a daily going in one-on-one against Dwight Howard every day, keeping your ass in shape, it's definitely going to keep you in check.
Yeah, I'm not going to say that was an under the radar move, but that's a move that doesn't jump out to you, but it's huge for the team. You have a competent backup that's a Hall of Famer that's coming off a championship that's going to motivate and show JoJo new things in the game, like new things to do. It's like the fundamentals to do. Like, Dwight Howard is a perfect backup for Joel Embiid, especially after last year with Al. Like, this year, and Kyle O'Quinn, like this year with Dwight Howard behind him, it's going to hopefully push Joe, and it's going to be a lot better than last year.
So one more comment I want to say. Nadir says Ben needs to step up their spacing and shooting now. There's no excuse. I agree with you, but I want to say this because clearly Nadir has a grudge with Ben Simmons. And not only is Ben Simmons elite and top 5 in everything else in the game of basketball besides shooting.
Fact.
I would argue that he is more important to the team than Joel Embiid is. Now we can save this discussion for next week and going before the season starts because Snap's not available right now with us. But I just want to get your guys' quick opinions on it because you got to remember, and I know I'm going back 3 years now, but it feels to me, and you compare the 16-0 run at the end of the season when Joel was not available and Ben was surrounded by shooters. They win 16 straight games going into the playoffs. Ben's off the floor this past year, and I know the vibe was just off the bubble. I'm not saying this is normal circumstances, but then they get swept by Boston. I would argue that Ben Simmons is more valuable to this team than Joel Embiid, meaning that if Shake has to come in for Ben and Ben has to miss time, but we have Embiid, compared to Dwight Howard filling in for Embiid and Ben's the starting point guard with all the spacing, I think that's more important to have. Because I was just saying that because I see all the comments about Embiid being MVP level, and I agree. Joel can be an MVP in this league if he dominates. To me, he's the most dominant big man in the association. I don't want to hear about the Joker. He's the most dominant big man. But he's got shit. Like everyone keeps saying, Ben's got to show it. Joel needs to show that he's the most dominant big man in the game.
Yeah, Joel had did Joel even make an all-defensive team last year?
He did not.
Yeah, that can't happen, and I don't think it's going to happen again. I really think Joel took a look in the mirror and said, "I'm so much better than this." But going back to if I think they can come out of the Eastern Conference, I've said I think they're the third best team in the East in terms of on paper. I mean, this could come out and look awesome, and the floor spacing looks great. I think Milwaukee got a lot better with Drew Holiday, or not a lot better, but better. And then I think Brooklyn's going to be really good just off talent. They have 2 guys that are going to probably put up 25 plus a night. Karis LeVert's really good. Spencer Dinwiddie's going off the bench. But after that, we are better than Boston. We are a better team than Boston, and we are a better team than Miami. And another thing I need to say, Bam Adebayo and Tyler Hero are becoming the most 2 overrated basketball players on planet Earth, and I can't stand it. But just to close out my rant, I don't want to say it's Eastern Conference Finals or bust because I do think there is 2 teams on paper that are better.
Hey, listen, dude,
we need to see a fight. Like there needs to be. We need to go through the first round effortlessly, sweep somebody.
So
go ahead.
I just want to piggyback off of that really quickly. I'm with you because it's so weird because it's the first year with a new roster with a new coaching staff, so it's kind of hard to say that.
I agree.
But at the same time, you still have the 2 cornerstones. You have the Max Tobias. I'm tired of the second round struggles. This has to be the year, in my opinion, they at least get over that hump, right? And I know it's weird to say because it's Doc's first year, this whole coaching staff. You brought in all these new pieces, a new president of basketball ops making all the calls. They have to get over that hump, man.
Yeah, I totally agree. And as for the Ben has to step up, I'm Ben Simmons' biggest fan probably on planet Earth. And I've said however many times I think Ben's the best player on this team. I think Ben's the most important person on this team. But he needs to be very, very good this year. I know he will. He's going to be surrounded, like you said, with that 17-game winning streak type team where he's just going to be able to pass the ball. He led the league in assists on 3-pointers last year. Yep. It's coming, and I'm so ready for this season. I really am.
I think he led the league in 3-pointers attempted, assisted, and was 4th in 3-pointer assisted 3-pointers made, or vice versa. One of those ways. Yeah. I mean, I absolutely cannot wait. When's the opener against Boston for the preseason? The 15th?
15th or 14th, one of the 2.
Nationally televised. So
then we get to open up with Embiid clowning Russ for the opener. That'll be fun. Have a good time.
Yeah. Yes. Well, thank you guys for commenting. Come back next week for the Faithful Fanatics podcast Wednesday. We have a big guest. Hopefully you guys know him, Paul Hembakidis, or if you know him as Hembo, producer for Get Up ESPN. He will be joining us next Wednesday at 5 or 5:30 start time. I'm not sure yet. Haven't decided. So keep on the lookout for that. Follow our Twitter at FaithfulFans too. We'll be tweeting more about the information you get there. Send in your questions for Hembo. I'm sure he'll have some numbers and stats on the Sixers this upcoming season, on the Eagles versus the Cardinals, because that's what game we'll be going into, whether the Eagles have a chance or not. So tune in for that. For Gint, for George, for Snap. Oh, go ahead, Gint.
TPL YouTube. YouTube. So hit the subscribe button, like, comment,
Yep. Go
ring
subscribe
that bell.
to the Painted Line.
Bell, baby. Raise the cat.
And have a nice night.